So, Mr. Agarwal, very warm welcome to you, to Wharton and Knowledge at One. Thank you for taking the time to be with us here today.
Thanks, Anirudh.
Um, so, would love to start off with getting a sense of about your company, your background, and obviously, given that you're in the BPO industry, just a high-level overview of current trends in the industry, where you see it going, what challenges you've faced recently, given the economic downturn in some of your key markets.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to be a part of the outsourcing industry rather than just keeping it restricted to the BPO industry
Sure.
in India since early '99, pretty much since it was set up in India. I worked with GE for a significant period of time, and then I really came on board onto Aegis, where we started the whole journey of setting up a company which is to make it a little different. In the last 6.5 years in Aegis, we've now achieved to hit about 52,000 people globally. We've done about 19 mergers and acquisitions.
Now, were you an entrepreneur before at any point in your lifetime?
Actually, I wasn't an entrepreneur, but most of my colleagues in Aegis are entrepreneurs.
Are there? Okay.
We obviously are very lucky to have the parentage of the SR group, which is full of entrepreneurs. So, from a family point of view, I come from a family of entrepreneurs, so maybe that became natural for me.
Sure.
But I think one unique composition that we have in the management team of Aegis is pretty much every single person is an entrepreneur.
Okay.
So I think it's been a good story so far. If you look at the industry overall, if you map it over the last 10 years, we saw a large number of companies specific to India starting in the BPO space.
Right.
And over the last 5 to 6 years, you see a lot of consolidation that's happened. The recession that hit, I think overall the industry did see challenges in terms of the recession. They did see with currencies getting stronger, with companies, specifically US companies, starting to look at the whole offshoring, with a more close eye. I think some companies did face a challenge. I think if you look at Aegis, though, our business model is extremely different. So we are not a pure play offshoring BPO or a company. We've got, for example, over 5,000 people employed in the US, which not too many people know about.
Right.
So we actually have operations in the US, in South America, in South Africa, in Saudi, in India, Sri Lanka, Philippines, and Australia. And leaving maybe a Philippines and a part of India, which does both domestic work and as well as offshore work, all the other countries actually support domestic work.
Sure.
So pretty much from a recession point of view, that helped us not to let it impact us in a major way.
Now, a couple of very interesting things you mentioned. So first of all, given that you have operations in so many different countries, and increasingly a lot of Indian companies in different sectors are expanding their operations abroad. Can you share some lessons from what you have learned, some management lessons that you have learned from having been running these operations abroad? What has worked well for you? What has not?
I think the first key Anirudh thing is that when we started, there was a core team of about 6 of us that came on board within the first 12 months of starting Aegis. I think even today, all 6 of us are intact. And I think that as a fundamental is the basic. You got to have the foundation very strong. Other than that, we obviously have a co-management team, and we have you touch the word entrepreneurs. The way we run every country is we like to have a leader in that country who's like an entrepreneur and who runs it in their own model. We obviously have defined processes, defined systems to make sure that a customer, they could be serviced from any part of Aegis, they get the same feel. But as far as the management teams go in each of these countries, they are local.
Sure.
It's pretty much like be a Roman in Rome. So if you go to Australia, you will see the management team, which is Australians, and when you go to South Africa, you will see a local team of South Africans. But the foundation, the processes, the systems, the IT, and everything behind it is common in every single location of Aegis.
Sure. And so what has not worked for you or what are some of the hurdles you faced, and what are some of the lessons you've learned as you try to expand abroad?
I think we've done 19 mergers and acquisitions. Okay, and frankly speaking, I think
Cross-border, you mean?
cross-border mostly. I think before getting into that, there are basically majorly two reasons of why we've done so many acquisitions. One, to acquire or enter a vertical where we did not have expertise in. So maybe, for example, could be the collection space, could be tech help, could be the IT space in terms of system integration. Second, to have geographical presence.
Sure.
Once we do the two, we then let the organic engine kind of boost and grow those businesses.
Right.
Very early on, when we started on our M&A journey, we realized that the integration framework has to be really, really strong. So the framework that we built after the first 2 or 3 acquisitions is a very detailed one. We in fact won a award from NASSCOM last year on it's called the 5-9 DNA really framework that we have.
So can you share a bit more detail about that?
So basically, really, if you look at in any acquisition, and if you study the last 100 acquisitions that have happened, irrespective whichever geography it is in, I would say more than 80% fail only because they did not do a good job in terms of integration. Integration is not, in our minds, about acquiring a company on a piece of paper. It's not about combining the balance sheets or the P&L, but it's really dealing with the emotions, the emotional part, which is a softer part of the aspect. And you got to really empower, make people feel comfortable. I'll take 1 or 2 examples. We've got colleagues of ours who are probably running a small, let's say a $20 million company. Once they become a part of Aegis, they now handle much larger roles and larger responsibilities. Pretty much at sometimes panning continents.
Right.
So I think that whole emotional part, which is there, I think the connect, which is we've been able to do that pretty well. The 5-9 framework, which I'm specifically talking about, is actually a very simple framework, but which is again, it's pretty much focused a lot around people.
Okay.
It really says that in the first 9 hours when you acquire a company, you need to roll out. You need to make the announcement, roll out the org charts, make sure that there is no room for questions in terms of people that goes. And the last 9 would really be 99 days, which would really mean the entire integration and acquisition needs to be completed by them,
Okay.
both in terms of legal, financial, as well as the people aspect. So for us, irrespective whether it's a $10 million acquisition or it's a $150 to $200 million acquisition, the framework would be the same and consistently across the board.
So that's very interesting. So, you mentioned that this was also recognized by NASC. So if I can just ask you to take your own individual experience, with your company and how you've managed integrations and other management lessons you've learned, can you start to generalize, or at the more macro level, if someone was viewing Indian management practices or Indian management philosophy, could you share some insights into what you think is unique about Indian management philosophy? Now, I know I'm asking to generalize, but if you could just offer some insights on how Indian management philosophy would, let's say, differ, compare, contrast against the management philosophies or practices of other
Western parts
countries.
of the world.
Yeah.
So and I've had the fortune of working for a very large MNC in the
Right.
past, and today I work for an extremely large Indian-based MNC. And I honestly feel that I would never trade again for the two. And I say this for obvious reasons. One, I guess, the biggest management comfort that as a part of a management team that you have working for an Indian company is one that you're not really just a SAP ID or Oracle ID. You're not just the ID number.
Sure.
They really empower you and they enable you to run your own business like an entrepreneur. When we acquire companies, we understand that it's not just about letting people go. It's about really doing the right stuff with the management team, sitting with them, discussing with them, and a lot of time is spent actually on soft aspects, which I feel is a big thing in terms of Indian best practice that I would take.
Sure.
In any acquisition, even before doing the M&A, we would meet a management team, for example, and we would take that commitment that they would stick with us for at least 18 to 24 months. In some cases, we walked out of a deal because those core people said they won't stick with it. So I think that's uniquely very different. When there are troubled times, the other good Indian management practice is they believe long term. They can look at returns more in terms of 5 years and 10 years and not kind of panic and say what's going to happen next quarter.
Right.
And that's another big comfort factor that you get, working for an Indian company.
And now if I can flip that question around and ask you, what's the one thing you would change about Indian management practices?
I think for the firm that I work with, the SR Group, I'll honestly say I think, and that would probably be a best practice for other Indian companies. I think they've managed to strike a perfect balance between who runs the organizations and what the role of a promoter versus the role of a management team that runs the company. I think that whole structure is very well defined. They spent a large time over the last 6 to 7 years in terms of defining that. And I think as long as that is defined, where what is the promoter's role, okay, and what is the management team's role, and the management team has that that comfort factor and the freedom to go and run the organization by itself, I think companies will do well. And that's something which MNCs in the western part of the world do really well.
Sure. Well, Mr. Agarwal, it's been a pleasure having you for Knowledge at Warden. Thank you again for sharing your insights and also giving us your time. It's a pleasure.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you.